You know that feeling. When someone is right next to you, but it's like there's something between you, frozen, something that stays silent, but screams inside. We're working hard to reach our first 1,000 subscribers. Every click matters more than you think. If you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. Don't miss what really matters.
I always thought we had a strong family. Not perfect, but real. We knew how to joke around. We spent evenings together. We shared things. Well, almost. Because there was one thing she never talked about. It wasn't something obvious. She didn't cry at night. She didn't throw tantrums. She didn't pull away from hugs. No, she was just a little distant. Sometimes. I noticed it in the small things. When I said something funny, she'd laugh half a second too late. When I touched her shoulder, she'd flinch as if she hadn't expected it. When I talked about plans, she'd smile, but her eyes looked right through me. The first time I felt it sharply was that morning when we were drinking coffee. She held her cup with both hands as if she needed to hold something inside herself together. I said, "Everything okay?" She nodded, and back then, I believed her. Now I know she almost told me the truth. Almost. Almost is a terrifying word. It gives false hope, and at the same time, it kills. You think that just a little bit more and everything will change, that the truth will be spoken, that the pain will come out, that everything will become easier. But almost is the pause between the blow and the blood. A week later, she tried again. It was evening. The kids had gone to Grandma's. We were sitting in the kitchen. I was cutting something. She was looking out the window. And suddenly she said, "I need to tell you something." I froze. She wasn't looking at me. Her hands were shaking. Her voice was quieter than usual. I turned around. "What happened?" She opened her mouth, and at that moment, the phone rang. A stupid, unnecessary call. I picked up. A couple minutes of conversation. When I turned back around, she was already smiling and saying, "Never mind, forget it." I decided not to push then. I thought, if she's ready, she'll tell me. She wasn't ready, and she never would be. This happened 2 more times. Each time, a little bit closer to the truth. Each time, almost. I started feeling tension, as if there was someone else in the room between us. Invisible, silent, but very loud. I started changing. I began feeling guilty for something I didn't know. I started asking myself questions. What did I miss? Maybe I did something wrong? Sometimes, I'd catch myself sitting in the bathroom, remembering details, words, looks, her pauses. I thought, maybe she's sick? Maybe she's in love with someone else? Maybe something happened to her before and she just can't say it? I didn't know how to live in this almost, because it had become our entire reality.
One night I woke up. It was 3:47 a.m. She was standing by the window, in the dark, with her phone in her hands. I asked, "Everything okay?" She turned around, and in her eyes was everything. Fear, guilt, and some kind of tired desperation. She nodded, smiled. "Yeah, just can't sleep." And I believed her, because I wanted to believe. In the morning, when she was making breakfast, I noticed a piece of paper in her hand. Old, crumpled. Words on it were crossed out, then rewritten, then crossed out again. I didn't ask, and that was my mistake. A month later, she left. Not me, but everything else. Physically, she was there, but inside, she had disappeared. She wasn't angry. She didn't argue. She just became a shadow. And then, there was an explosion. Not literal, but the kind after which a family never gets back up. One truth, one evening, one sentence that I finally heard, too late. You think you know a person, until one sentence destroys your entire world. Everything happened almost by accident.
like all real disasters do. Not with raised voices, not in anger, but in silence, as if someone quietly closed a door and you realized it would never open again. It was a Tuesday. I came home a little later than usual. She was sitting on the couch. The TV was on, but the sound was off. The room was strangely quiet, the way it is in a museum after closing. Dead silence, but not peace, more like a pause before an explosion. I said, "Hi, everything okay?" She nodded. Then she stood up and walked over to me. Without words, she put a piece of paper in my hands. One sheet, folded in half. I unfolded it and read, "I can't live with this anymore. I almost told you, many times, but each time I froze. Because if I tell you, everything will collapse. And if I don't tell you, it will kill me. So, here it is. Sorry it's like this." And below, she wrote what I didn't expect, didn't want to know, couldn't believe. 2 years before this, she had an affair. Brief, emotional, with someone I even knew. He was part of our social circle, a friend I trusted. She described it without drama, without excuses, just fact. She wrote, "I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't know what to do with this. It ended quickly. But inside me, nothing ended. Every day I stayed silent, because I couldn't destroy what we had built." And there it was, destroyed. Not because she left, but because truth doesn't tolerate silence. I didn't scream. I didn't throw the paper away. I just stood up, went to another room, sat on the floor, and sat there for a long time. There was no anger in my head. There was emptiness.
I didn't know what was scarier, the fact of the affair itself, or that she had looked me in the eyes all this time. Looked, cooked, hugged, and stayed silent. And then I started remembering all those moments when she almost told me. The coffee, the night by the window, the crossed out paper. And I realized she wanted to. Really. She tried, but she couldn't. I should have asked her one question. Real, director, open. But I hid in comfortable silence. I saw that she was hurting. But I didn't dig deeper. I didn't insist. Because I didn't want to know, and now I know. But knowing doesn't save anymore. Because knowledge without time is poison. A late "I love you" doesn't heal. A late "I'm sorry" doesn't restore. A late truth doesn't save a family. We didn't break up right away. It was a slow process. Silent dinners, catching our breath, the impossibility of touching. We lived under one roof, but in different worlds. And every day I felt just a little bit more, and the house would burst from tension. 2 months later, she left. Not in hysteria, not in rage, but with the words, "Sorry I couldn't do it earlier." I thought the pain would pass, but pain isn't a guest. It stays if you don't meet it in time. After she left, days became shapeless. There were no fights, no tears, no scenes, which meant there was no closure, just silence, remnants of her scent on the pillow, a mug on the shelf, photos I could no longer look at. People asked, "What happened?" I said, "We just grew apart." No one asked further, and I didn't want to explain. Because how do you explain that what tore you apart wasn't one moment, but a million almosts? The hardest part wasn't the truth. It was the timing it came. Too late to talk, too early to forgive, too precise to forget. I started listening to voice messages she had once sent me, ordinary ones, without subtext, but I heard in them what I hadn't noticed before: pauses, doubts, false lightness. As if now, knowing the truth, I could hear it earlier. But then, I didn't hear it. I went through her things, found an old notebook, her handwriting, notes in the margins, some unfinished sentences. On one page, a line, "He's not to blame. He just didn't see." I froze. She didn't write this for me. This was for herself, as if she was trying to justify me in that reality where she couldn't forgive herself. She stayed silent not because she didn't want to speak, but because she was afraid to lose. And in the end, she lost everything. 6 months passed. I no longer waited for her call. I didn't build scenes in my head. I just lived. But in this there was no life. There was routine, autopilot. You eat, you work, you sleep, but you're not inside. Sometimes in the empty apartment, I would ask her a question out loud. Why didn't you tell me then? There was no answer. But the silence answered better than any words. People say truth sets you free, but that's only if it comes on time. Late truth is a bullet in the back when you've already believed everything was safe. The scariest thing, I still don't know if I could have forgiven her. Maybe yes, maybe no, but I didn't get the chance to find out, because she almost told me, and I almost heard, and now we only have almosts left. Sometimes I have the same dream. We're in the kitchen. She says, I need to tell you something. And this time, I don't pick up the phone. I don't turn away. I look into her eyes. I wait. I listen. And in the dream, I forgive. But then I wake up, and the room is silent again. Without her, without words, without a chance. Truth told at the wrong time is no longer truth. It's a sentence. You've probably done this too. Gone silent, postponed, waited for the right moment to say something important, honest, about what sits inside like a splinter. You thought it would be safer that way, that if you waited just a little longer, it would be easier, that if you stayed quiet now, you could save it, preserve it, hold it together. But truth, it's like air. If you hold it inside yourself too long, you start to suffocate. And then the person next to you suffocates. This story isn't about betrayal, and not even about infidelity. It's about silence, about how silence becomes a bomb, how the fear of destroying destroys more powerfully than the truth itself. She almost told him. He almost heard. They almost saved their family. And this almost became the final period. We often live as if we have infinitely many tries. That truth will wait, that feelings won't spoil, that the person won't leave. But life has no rough drafts. We don't have a rewrite button. There's only now. If you're holding something inside, ask yourself honestly, why are you silent? From fear, from shame, from the desire not to lose? And now ask, aren't you losing all of this right now? Every day you stay silent, truth told on time can wound, but truth told too late kills. If you're still thinking whether to say it or not, this is the moment. It's now, not later, not tomorrow. Now, because later, you'll remember how you looked into the eyes of someone you loved and saw that they no longer believe, not because you betrayed them, but because for too long, you said nothing. If you watch this video to the end, maybe you're also carrying silence inside, and maybe today is your moment.